Welcome to the Tulip Mania of 1637, the original FOMO bubble in the world, at least according to a lot of people. Why did this happen? That is something I want to address today. And why did it happen in the Netherlands of all countries? Why not in England or in France or Spain? Well, there are specific reasons, and I want to really break down because I think that will help us a lot. And give us some understanding why speculative bubbles starts. Because some people, when they talk about the tulip crisis in the Netherlands, they speak about greed and the typical psychological aspects of it. But I think there are a lot more depth to this story that needs to be addressed, and I think people deserve a more structural presentation about why this happened in Netherlands, because that will help us to understand why or where it can happen 2026. And some people say this is a bit similar to NFT when that happened during 2021, 2022, when a lot of people bought really expensive NFT art or crypto art. And a couple of years later, a lot of the art has dropped in value with 95, 98%. So we have a lot of sort of bubbles that have come and go over the years, but it's not very often it's at the same place, at the same in the same form. But through understanding the tulip crisis and the fundamentals that drives it, hopefully we can um, foresee the future. So that is what I one part of why I'm doing this video. And also I think the history of the tulips here and overall the whole story is a bit of a mystique, and through a historical lens, I think it will be a very interesting aspect to mix the history and also the economic parts of it and the structure. So that is what I want to do today. Basically, this is not just about greed. This is also about how economic systems are created, and also how speculative bubbles can be created. So that is what I'm going to talk about. And basically, in the early 1600s in the Netherlands, this was a country that wasn't at this time a typical European state. So as of today, Netherlands is quite similar to other countries in Europe. But during the 1600s, the early 1600s, they were a bit different. They were earlier in terms of leaving agriculture and being modernized, you could say. So they were recently independent from Spain. They were quite commercial, not as feudal anymore, meaning also that they became urban faster than other European countries. And also, instead of being aristocrat led, for example, like France, they were largely merchant led. So this was kind of a dynamic that are important to understand before we enter the next stages of this presentation. Crucially, also in the Netherlands, the wealth was actually widely distributed among the merchants. So it wasn't just one instance that had all the money. It was a quite bread among the people who owned money, similar to how it is today, for example. So at this time, a lot of countries had a very concentrated amount of wealth, for example, through kings and aristocrats, etc. But that wasn't how it was in the Netherlands. This also led to the potential of money circulating very fast, and in the culture in the Netherlands was actually quite risk taking at this period. They did not just use normal money, for example, silver coins, copper coins, etc. They did use contracts and similar modern um, inventions, contracts to um, to conclude trades. And this was a very interesting specific thing in Netherlands that they were starting to do before other countries. And if you want to understand how can bubble the foundations for a bubble, for example, the tulip crisis, for it to be created, we need a surplus of capital. We need some certainty regarding legality. So in this case, contracts, and also some social acceptance of risk. So in Netherlands at this time, they actually accepted risk and they accepted contracts, etc. So this is one fundamental going forward. We also had other specific traits of the Netherlands that made this tulip crisis possible. For example, they had the Baltic, the trade with the Baltics. For example, Prussia, Poland, etc. They had massive trade with the Baltic, and a lot of grains were coming into to Holland or the Netherlands from Poland and Prussia. And why is this important for the story? Well, obviously, a speculative bubble might not happen if you are going all day very hungry. But when they had these sophisticated trade routes, a lot of um, um, water floods, the biggest water passages in Europe went through Holland and Rotterdam, etc. They could have a lot of trade by water to most of Europe, and through the trades they had with the Baltics, they could have a lot of shipped grains, for example, and with the Scandinavian that they could get timber, and also they did get a lot of fish like herring and salt, etc. They were very proficient in shipbuilding, etc., and quite ruthless on the sea. And this made them basically an export hub of Europe. And the grain they got from the Baltic, that obviously made it easy for them to fill their stomachs. And that is, if you think about the hierarchy of needs, that is one of the most fundamental needs that you need to go through. And if you don't have that, then obviously speculation bubbles might not be the first thing that will happen. So at this time and place, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, it was just not a city. It was more than that. It was basically Europe's clearinghouse, very early in banking and such type of offerings. And you could say that money flow through the Dutch hands constantly. And this was not how it was in other countries. So there were a lot of specific um, what can I say, a culture and a society that was more mature regarding a modern thinking around money in the Netherlands compared to other all countries in the world, basically at this time. In another video, I talked about Keeper and Whipper and that crisis in the Germany during this time period also. And we did have that type of problem around Europe at the time, with a lot of money getting clipped and debased. And this also meant that doing business through contracts, that was something that really took a lot of speed in the Netherlands, where the trading and the money making became a lot more sophisticated very fast. And what this type of society created with a financial hub in Amsterdam, etc., was a sort of a sophistication that a lot of other European countries lacked, and this provided a lot of liquidity and especially a lot of comfort with an abstract value, and that was something that a lot of other countries did not experience. They still made a lot of their um, trades with coins, etc., and this was not the case in the Netherlands. They had other ways to make money. So in the Netherlands at the time, when money it started to flow very fast, this led to a potential of assets detached from physical utility, and this is something that we can see today in all economies. And this was something that happened in the Netherlands already during the 1600s, and this is very important later when we continue this presentation. Also, Amsterdam, as I said, it was a financial center, an exchange hub, and also this was where bills of exchange, futures, contracts, etc., was really getting accelerated and used more. Also, they had Rotterdam, and this was where it was the shipping, the warehouses, and the logistics of the Netherlands to being this um, sort of hub. So they were the shipping hub through the Rotterdam, and having the industries, etc., and the financial hubs through Amsterdam. So they have this kind of split between them, and that made them also very successful. Um, and also the Baltic Sea routes was important because, as I said, through all the grain imports, they really stabilized the price of food. and reduced existential risks. And basically, this helped people to speculate more aggressively, and the risk tolerance was quite high because all the structures were in place. So this is why one of the reasons why Tulip Mania could happen in the Netherlands and not in another country where this was not in place. And another thing that you should think about when or why a crisis, kind of a fear of missing out crisis or a financial bubble creates, is um, financial scarcity and that type of doctrine. And the tulips provide us with this because, well, tulips, they required some specifics to really bloom in a nice way. They need a sandy, well-drained soil, cool winters, and also a very controlled moisture. And basically, the Dutch soil, the soil of the Netherlands, it was very rich, sand rich, careful managed, and if you know geographically where the Netherlands are placed, is placed very low, even below the sea level. So they build kind of canals and walls to not getting the whole country flooded. So they have a very specific soil here, and this made the tulip a very well positioned for having tulips basically, and they still have a lot of tulips in the Netherlands. So this was just not about them being first in terms of financial hubs and being a leader through trades, etc. They also had a um, specific soil for the tulips. So that is why the tulips were one of the things that happened in the Netherlands and not in other countries. So a lot of things converge there into to why specifically the tulip mania happened in the Netherlands. And yeah, basically this soil and the geographic positioning of the Netherlands led to high quality cultivation of tulips and specialization. And they could it's called bulbs before the flower just blooms and became all these amazing colors, and they could have a differentiation between the different bulbs. They could be in the soil for 6 months. So during the time they were in the soil, you could speculate on contracts and resell that contract over and over again. And then the tulip just bloomed, and hopefully it was a fantastic tulip. So this is how this very flower was fantastic in terms of being that very thing that people like to use when being speculative on contract. So the condition for price discovery and mispricing here was amazing, and also the tulip was very globally scarce, and but it was locally scalable. So this made it a specific Netherlands thing. And yeah, you should also know that Dutch culture at this very time, they valued trade, they respected merchants, and they accepted profits as something legitimate. That means that in other countries, maybe being speculative on contracts was looked at as a sin, as something you should not speculate in. It was against the religion, etc. But in Netherlands, they were kind of Calvinists, but with a type of Christianity, but they were still quite commercially pragmatic, and this provided them with a culture and a fundamental that, for the time, was quite early with accepting value trading, etc. So this is also why I'm saying that this bubble was not random at the time in the Netherlands. It could not happen in another country the way it did at that specific time, and I think that is something that is important to bring us to a modern context also when we think about your own country where you live in, and if there are any financial bubbles coming, you need to understand the culture and everything that comes around and goes around, because a lot of structures are moving at the same time when uh, fear of missing out moment are being created. So basically at this time speculation wasn't seen as very sinful, and they did a lot of conducting through contracts and trading in paper. That was very normal, basically. And what we can say about tulips is that wasn't the thing that really introduced this economic wheel in the Netherlands, but they absorbed it, and they was a very good fit into the model they had in Netherlands at this moment in time. And as I said, during the early 1600s, Europe were suffering a lot from the debasement of currencies and abstracting value away from metals, and having, for example, trading in tulips was a more sophisticated way for the Dutch in the Netherlands to provide trade and liquidity in the market space. So what tulip contracts really meant was that it was often traded without the physical delivery. This meant that the bulbs, before they were even done for, maybe they were traded during the autumn and were supposed to bloom during spring, and they were trading during whole period. And this meant that they can be resell. The contract could be resell over and over. And this also meant it was without cash settlement. And basically, it was a lot of trust and expectations that provided the base for trade and the contract. And that is very important, because this wasn't just a naive behavior, it was really a financial innovation without guardrails that was the engine behind this. So I think we should not just talk about greed or being naive, or using the easy psychology to explain what happens here in the Netherlands. It was a lot something else than that. It was they were pushing the financial innovation, and we still do, but we obviously did it without guardrails. The Netherlands was first with many things here, and that provided like this perfect mix of things. And yeah, the Tulip Mania, it wasn't just about owning flowers. It was more about the forward contracts, the right to buy or sell bulbs later, to tulip bulbs, and also about the seasonal delivery of these tulips that made it perfect. And I would say we have some key drivers regarding the bulbs and the tulips that made this perfect. And so, as I said, the bulbs was underground most of the year, and this is why trading could happen without any physical changing hands. And also, this created leverage, detachment from reality, as we see sometimes today with the price of some stocks, etc. I always like to buy or trade based on fundamentals, maybe some KPI drivers like a growing cash flow, price per earnings, a good ROI, etc. But obviously, some stocks are not trading that way, detached from reality. We still see that type of development even today. And also, this meant price acceleration for the tulips during this time. And yeah, I would say that tulips maybe was an excuse to trade paper. So all things here just made them, they fit into the model of the Dutch at this specific time during the 1630s. And also, if we hone in on the tulips more specifically, the most valuable tulips, they had like a specific pattern coloring, like flames or broken colors or stripes. And this was very interesting because some of them became very scarce, or scarce. And this obviously, in economic terms, made them more valuable. And at the time, I do not think many knew, maybe some knew, but not many, that this was based on something called the mosaic virus. And this virus made it very hard to reproduce a specific tulip. And the trait of the tulips became very unstable, and this made some of the pattern maybe growing out once in a lifetime. And obviously, that was the one you wanted, and the contracts for that one was obviously getting traded very heavily. And you could say that the scarcity here was obviously partly accidental, but I still think it's a very important part of the story, and also an important thing when you think about structures and economics and these type of stories that address FOMO, fear of missing out, and financial bubbles, etc. And obviously, a lot of people today are saying that a lot of things are very priced, very expensively priced, and we have a lot of debt around it in society. Are we closing in on a bubble, etc.? I think or hope that this little presentation I do here can provide you with some fundamentals, a part of the bigger puzzle for you when you analyze the world to really comprehend what's happening, and that makes it easier for you to do the choices and the analytics that you yourself do. So that is something to keep in mind. So yeah, this was sort of a rarity narratives, and this is what people priced. And during this time, a lot of people might think this the whole Dutch economy collapse. This is one of the myths out there, but this wasn't the case. The whole economy did not collapse, but some people obviously get hurt very badly when the contracts, when people didn't turn up to actually buy the contracts anymore. It happens very fast, but farmers did not starve or banks did not just fail systematically. This is not what happened, but there were obviously real losers here. I think artisans, merchants, maybe skilled workers, etc. A lot of people really lost a lot of money here, and yeah, it was painful, but the whole Netherlands didn't go under. I think, for example, the keeper and whipper situation in Germany during this time was worse, and the peasants in Germany were really starving when the debasement of currency over there became a reality. Also, during this time, the tulips they provided something of a social hierarchy. If you did have them, you were obviously richer, something you were a bit nicer. It was something that rewarded you in the social ladder. But when it collapsed, obviously it was socially very embarrassing for people who had spent a lot of their money, maybe sold their businesses, etc., to just get the value of the tubes they had eradicated. They have obviously talked about those things probably at home countless of time. So yeah, this was probably politically manageable, but socially very painful and financially painful also for a lot of people. Uh, that is how it was. And yeah, the crash happened when suddenly buyers at a specific time during 1637 didn't show up. The confidence quite fast broke down and the enforcement weakened. Also, during this time, when so sort of conflicts ended up in court. The courts did not fully enforce some future claims, and that also meant that a lot of people understood the risk of owning this type of bulbs, and renegotiating the contracts 10 times was a very, what can I say, a thing that is quite a high risk, so to speak. And yeah, the prices collapsed instantly and liquidity just vanished. And just to wrap things up now, what I want you to bring with you that this is not just a story about greed, as some people might think. There are other lessons to learn here. So these type of bubbles, they happen when we have systems that allow abstraction, leverage, and trust. And this is not really when where people are just acting fully irrational. I think sometimes we blame people too hard when we think about this type of financial bubbles, but basically this is about systems, and that is why financial bubbles do repeat, but they do not actually repeat in the same places and not often in the same assets. That is why you get a bit blindsided when it happens, because when you talk about, for example, an AI bubble, or the stock market is going to collapse, or it did not happen. But suddenly, for example, during the 1999 and early 2000. When it did not talk about it, it collapsed. The same with the 2008 bubble and with the subprime loan um, thing over in USA that just spread around the world that caused the crisis. These type of things, it blindsides you, but if you understand the structures, you might be able to foresee it a bit better. And yeah, Tulipmania, this is basically not just a warning about speculation and FOMO. It's rather a warning about our systems, and when the system let the paper, the worth of the paper money outrun the real worth of um, the services that is provided. And I think that is, we have some areas today where we can see this happening, where the PE ratio of a company might be not 30 or 40, it might be 150, and the growth of the company might just be 10% per year, and it's going to be that for the next 6 to 7 years. Then we have something else, the fundamentals that are driving the worth of the company. So this is something that you should keep in mind and understand, and see the whole this different type of system and structure when you analyze the world. And hopefully this is just one puzzle of many that you can use to decrease maybe your anxiety, and provide more understanding of where we are at the moment, and help you put your own, where you to put your feet going forward, and just being that rational human, because it's easy to get swept away with everything that's happening that's hijacking our dopamine at the moment. But just stay focused and understand fundamentals. Things has happened before. There are structures. There are actually real scientific reasons why things happen. But you just have to relax and analyze and break down the situation, and you will have tools, and you will increase your tool books over time. So you can say that every modern financial system, they really walks this line. And yeah, keep that in mind when you walk the line, and address the risks you have, if you, where you have your money, if you, what you buy, um, etc. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. It was a great time. If you like this type of content, my channel, if you want to support me to do this type of dives, just hit the subscribe button. And yeah, I'd like to long term build a community. So it's great that you tuned in today. I'm very very happy for everyone who watched these type of videos. I feel it feels very rewarded to talk about the things, and I think it's useful information for people. And that's why I want to do this, to make this connection between the history, economics, and our modern times. So thanks.